cool. And so what all have you worked on? Because you've got obviously the hemp CBD side that I work with you on, the farming and pre-processing, and I know you have the haunted house. But what kind of other, and this is kind of before we get into it, but just like briefly, kind of other stuff you work on?
Well, I owned a tech business called ECM, and I used to take people's startup technology with open source platforms and take it all the way to their own chip and proprietize it for them. I built custom haunted houses. I've done mega events, summer concert series, beer festivals, done a lot of sponsorship raisings, the farm park and all the events and activities that fall in line with that, marketing platform. And then on this side, a lot more of the warehouse management and flow chart and making sure that we have, fluidity in our operations. And then now without Ryan back onto the business side. And so just a little bit touch and go on a little bit of everything. So
Man, you
a
have been all
firearms
over.
company. Yeah, I owned a firearms company for a while and did training, tier 1 training. And so, yeah.
It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. It's fun.
Not a bad little gig.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from all that has always been that sometimes having a passion for something and being really good at it isn't necessarily a good reason to start a business. So
that's absolutely true. But, yeah, it's all the hopes and dreams in the world don't make a good company.
No, and it doesn't make a good boss. It doesn't make a good business person. It doesn't mean, everybody who, that runs a business and tries to do it all themselves end up failing, right? They go back to the stepping stones of realizing their strengths and weaknesses, and moving into a weakness makes your strength suffer, and you can't be successful that way. You sure can't grow. So
yeah, that's being a good boss is different than wanting to run a company.
You bet. You bet.
Two very different things. But okay, cool. So we will get rocking here in just a second. So hi, this is Alex from the Millennial Entrepreneur. I'm here with one of my good friends, Trevor, that I work with on the CBD side. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's worked on firearms companies, tech side, and the agriculture side. So Trevor, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so if you could just take me through your journey as an entrepreneur, where you started out when you were younger, why you believe starting companies was what you would do in life, and taking your wants and needs and putting them into a company.
Sure. Well, I guess it really all started following my dad's footsteps. He's a third generation farmer here on this land. I'm the fourth generation, and he started the Fritzler Farm Park back in 2000, more out of a necessity to keep the farm, because agriculture was such a downward spiral of making any money. And I just watched how he thrived and grew, and had control, but was just an excellent boss and kind of a role model for me. And so I didn't want to ride his coattails my whole life. And so I jumped into a few of my own businesses and taught myself how to do a lot of different things, and started with the tech company, and then built custom haunted houses, and then a firearms company. And then now I'm into the CBD space, and also doing a lot more on the farm park side for events and just layout of everything as far as it goes down operationally.
So what have you seen, as you have a very interesting background for the different types of industries that you've worked in, but what have you seen as a common theme between all of them that's you think can almost be relatable to any industry?
Well, startups are hard. Number one.
Yeah.
I think some of the biggest pieces that I learned that I had to grow through was that, you're not just a boss, you're not just an employee, you're not just, you're all of these different hats, and that you have to diversify yourself and then build the team around you to then delegate that, no matter what business you're in, to delegate those strengths to those people and trust them, so that each individual operational piece is able to thrive and then grow and then sustain its growth, because you're not chopping one person into 5 different jobs.
Mm-hmm. Knowing when and how to delegate.
Absolutely. Yeah, obviously you can't afford it out the gate and you've got to wear, all the hats, but you have to have that mindset to know that when you are going to grow and as you start to develop and grow, you have to be able to have that good manual or SOP for that job for that person that comes in that you can trust to take it because they're
Mhm.
obviously going to be able to do a better job of that than you are doing 10 other different tasks.
Yeah, you get spread a bit thin
You
early
bet.
on once you're kind of taking everything on. We were talking a little bit before we hopped on as far as being a boss versus an employee. What have you seen are maybe earlier in your career when you weren't quite as developed as being a boss, or maybe that transition, what you saw as, okay, now, I'm not an employee anymore. My clock is from the start of the day to the end of the day. There is no real end, and how to work with other employees of yours and communicate with them.
Yeah, well, just like anything in life, perception is very important. I think, the first thing that ever happens to anybody when they become their own boss is, and then they get an employee is the power strike, right? And they mouth off one time about something, and you're, wow, I can't believe they would do that. Um, but having to put yourself still, keep yourself in those shoes, right? Like they say, once a teacher but first a student. You're the same thing. You always have to be understand the employee mindset and where they're coming from, and that they don't have any risk in this. They are the 8 to 5 punch in punch out, and you're carrying all the risk, and you have to keep your employees happy to a certain extent in order to have a thriving business. So I would say, being a boss and learning those things and understanding how to separate yourself a little bit from your employees, unlike being an employee and having your friends that are working with you, you have to have that professional relationship. And then the perception side, it's hard for an employee to want to work hard for you when they don't see that you're working hard. So
Mhm.
you have to incorporate a show basically to help them understand that, hey, my boss is also working hard. I need to work hard as well.
Mhm. That's kind of you work up to the people you're around. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
absolutely.
you're sitting there hanging out, and maybe your boss is kind of sitting around where you don't see him all the time, and so it's difficult to say, this is our speed. The boss sets the pace, and so where are they? What are they doing? What's going on? How hard do I have to work?
You bet. If you go out in the warehouse and you take a seat as the boss, you better believe that your employer's going to come over and sit next to you. But if you grab
Hmm.
a shovel and start digging, your employers are going to be digging right beside you. I mean, that's that's the mindset you got to have for those people. So
Yeah. And so you have started multiple companies. So what was the pillar that made you decide, okay, this is growing more than an idea, and this has the ability to bring in revenue, cover its costs, or even net positive over some period of time. What was the pillar piece or the moment that you were thinking that this is real and I'm going to make this a company?
you know, one, I believe the answer to that question varies from person to person.
Yeah.
Two, for me, you know, I think I had a lot of failures in the beginning. So, my tech company never thrived. We had a lot of bad contracts, so it was more of a learning business for me. The firearms company hit that point when it was more or less of a biz, hobby business in essence. And
Hmm.
that point for me, when I finally was like, I got to stop, was when it consumed every other ounce of time that I had in my life that I wasn't already dedicated for one of my other businesses. And it was like, well,
Hmm.
what's the risk versus reward keeping this or not keeping this? For the farm park, for us, it was really out of necessity, again, starting the business. And it was, taking those numbers and putting them against what we were making on the farm and saying, hey, is it profitable? And we didn't really have a choice if it was $1 profitable or $1 million profitable at that point. If it was profitable, we were keeping it because it was something we could take to the bank.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe all of those have a little different answer, but I really think it's a matter of how much time it's consuming. Are you willing to grow? Is this something that you want to take down a path forever, or is this something that maybe is gobbling up more time than you want to dedicate to it? And is it now becoming more a cumbersome business than it is something you want to take the next level?
Hmm. And what would you say when you're working in your company and you're working in the day to day? and you start getting the accounting side building up, or maybe if you have a website, that piece is building up, or maybe some of the more manual labor pieces are building up, when are you deciding that, okay, I need to really bring on a quality person? I need to hire well, look to the future. I am only as sufficient as where my time is going, and I need to delegate this.
Yeah, well, the easiest answer is, can you afford it?
Yeah.
It's that's a very important piece. We found ourselves a lot of times in our agritourism business that yes, we absolutely need more people, more quality people, but we can't really justify it because we're such a seasonal company.
Hmm.
Having and bringing on another full-time employee, so we just keep spreading ourselves thinner and thinner. Um, it- it's great you asked that question. We just hired on 2 new employees for that, and the justification is we can't keep doing it this way and grow. We've hit a plateau where
Hmm.
we know we can go over it, but in order to get there, we can't do it ourselves anymore. We're already maxed out. So it really just has to look good on paper. Two, you got to know that the person that you're going to hire, you can't scrimp on, right? You want to hire a
Hmm.
person that's going to be a part of your team, not just an interim that you're going to have to keep having this, new guy all the time that you have to teach, because teaching, you're gonna have to work twice as hard to teach somebody to do something.
Yeah.
And so you got to be able to afford it, in essence, that you got to get a quality individual in there, somebody that reminds you of yourself, that has that passion and drive, that you're willing to pay for that, so that they want to work hard and do as good a job as you would want to do. And when you can do that and you can justify those means, then that's important. But you also have to look at where your company has potential. If you're seeing that I'm not able to take this many orders or package this many cookies because it's just me, but I have orders that I'm telling people no because I can't do it. Well, your growth, your company is suffering because you're not hiring that person. And you
Yeah.
can simply justify it by saying, I can package twice as many cookies and I have the sales for them as well.
Hmm. So kind of building up that sales, kind of the orders coming in on the front side, stressing what you currently have, almost waiting until maybe some pieces start breaking, and then saying, okay, we have more sales coming in. We really want to fix this key issue, this person's quality, and hopefully they work with us for years.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what people would consider really lean approach.
Hmm.
Waiting until something breaks before you fix it is a case of bad preventative maintenance,
Yeah.
and so as we know, right? And so um,
Too
it,
well.
it's maybe a catch-22, and if you don't, if your sales are exceeding your abilities, then you obviously know that you have, I mean, that should seal the deal for you. But
Hmm.
always having that conscious lookout to like, hey, one, am I enjoying life? Because that's the most important thing. Am I working so hard that I can't even enjoy my life? No one can argue with me on that, because that's the most important thing. If you're at that point, like, you have to figure out what the next step is. And you have to build that building block and at least have it open and ready so that you can kind of get a good gauge. So when you're ready to pull the trigger, it's ready to go.
And to change subjects a little bit, when you're like, what would you say as 2020 you're looking for as a market you think's going to do well? I think in 2020 you had COVID, you had, the election, a lot of things going on, and just something I'm familiar with is like Tesla, their stock has done, insane huge numbers. I personally think it's a bit overevaluated. I was talking to someone recently that was saying that everyone already put in the value of the Cybertruck and some of these other things that haven't even launched yet. So, there's still a risk if those don't have a good launch, it could come down. But what do you see as like a hot market that you're looking into?
Um, with the interpretation that through either the vaccination or growth that COVID starts to pull out, or in our current market space.
Well, I guess that's a good clarification. I would say maybe until like March, COVID is still an issue, and then it starts kind of opening up again, like it did last year, or this year. I personally don't think COVID will be totally done in 2021. I think that's kind of a hope. Everyone's got the vaccine, but it's still got to figure out if the vaccine's real. And I heard in Europe there was a mutation in COVID, and so they're worried that the vaccine may not even affect that mutation.
Sure.
Um,
Well, I think if you just follow some of what the market's looking like, cannabis is THC particularly is like up 1,000%.
yeah.
We look at these essential businesses, and you look at, past economic crisis, liquor, and now the following trend, cannabis. People go buy liquor when they lose everything, and people go buy liquor when they win everything, right? Like it's hedged on both sides of the market.
Yeah.
And I think THC and cannabis is as well, especially as I believe that there's potential under this new administration that we'll have some legalization and some movement on the FDA side, and it's just going to open up a few more doors. I think medicinally, it could jump in. I know the VA is looking at jumping in. So, those are some good market spaces. I think that they're kind of niche because not everybody wants to jump into them. So the doors that are open have a lot of room to get into them. So
Yeah.
I think that those are pretty good market spaces.
And there's a bit of a barrier entry, working with CBD or even THC, just on like the processing side of it. Like from an agricultural perspective or even a manufacturing perspective, it is not a normal material. It
Correct.
is, there are very, like, I'm not saying it's totally different than anything, but there are definitely some very slight, like critical things that you need to do when you're processing this stuff that if you don't, you could ruin maybe a year's worth of crop or even oil in our case.
You bet. Yeah, I think the the dumbest thing I ever said when I thought I was an expert a couple years ago when we grew our first hemp crop and dove in 128 acres, I says we can grow specialty crops, we can grow weed, and that was ignorant. We learned that every step is crucial to the potential ability of the crop, and once you deplete or fail to maximize its yield potential in any one of those crucial steps, you never get it back. It just trickles throughout the whole stream. And if you screw it up just in the field, which is, a task in and of itself, your harvest method, your drying method, your pre-processing method, your extraction method is all going to hurt from what you did right there. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting point that you don't just get to throw this stuff in the dirt and make a neat little flour nugget and
Yeah.
harvest it and go to the bank and tell them you made it. It doesn't work like that.
We planted money and it worked. And that's what I feel a lot of people think whenever they look at THC or the CBD market, is this is just some money cow that everyone's getting into and it's so easy. And a lot of investors are looking at it and it's like, we've seen, you and I have seen top tier, what were considered top tier companies go under recently.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, you start peeling back the layers of the company and start saying, well, they had no safety procedures at all, or their company structure was totally messed up, or they, had in some cases lied about what they were able to do. And now it's kind of coming back full circle where it's like these guys that got hundreds of millions of dollars to get a market share of like 40 billion, what everyone thought the industry was going to be, is now way too big. They didn't build the small pieces of foundation along the way, and now they're having huge issues.
Well, it's very interesting when you look at the market now, and hindsight's always 2020. We can armchair quarterback this bad boy and look back in time a little bit, and
the perfect way to play it.
yeah, right. And we can look at it and go, why in the world were we investing that much money into a recreationally driven market space? Like we hadn't even gone into any big box. We weren't allowed to. In fact, the legal ramifications, the farm bill was like, I don't know, we're going to throw something together so we can get it out the door. Rev 1.
Very confusing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And they're like in Rev like 37,465,000 right now, where they're just have these discussion periods open, and they extend that because they're just trying to learn from us. We're the experts, right? And so, everybody saw these numbers back when no one was doing it. Oh, $60 a pound for biomass, like, $3,000 a liter. And so everybody jumped in this bandwagon, but no one ever really gauged what the demand was, and like that the demand wasn't just going to explode with the supply chain.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, we can sit here and pick it apart, but I think that the hope is that, we are in a recreationally driven market, and we are learning to get really, really, really lean in all of our operations, from growing it to extracting it, because sales prices aren't supporting what we used to be doing.
Hmm.
And so as we come out of this age, and we get some more guidance, and we can enter some of these ancillary market spaces with new product, and start blending with other things, and some bigger businesses get involved, we don't have to go back to our old ways where it costs us, $15 a pound to extract. We can
Hmm.
still do it down here at our lean rate, and just watch our margins start to flow out. And that's
Yeah.
really how markets really develop. I mean, look at the corn market. It's forever years old, and it's still screwed up, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's there's going to be ups and downs in it. And so I think it's a good test of the market. I weeded out a lot of fish that shouldn't be in the pond.
Hmm.
And I think that, once we surface out of this, we'll have, become better men about it.
Yeah, it's kind of weathered by the storm in a certain sense of the word. I mean, if like Zelios was in it real early, at least the CBD side, and just going into multiple states, seeing the different types of markets and seeing the different kinds of players and seeing everyone's beliefs in the growth cycles, and then watching isolate drop down from 3K a kilo to like 500. It's just, I mean, that's, you just throw the business plan out the window at that point. I mean, like, what do you even do, you know?
Yeah, and it just brings us to touch, and it's probably is a whole nother another topic. We haven't really even touched the potential of the plant yet.
Mhm.
We're selling a byproduct of a plant, which is the oil off the flower, which is represents what, maybe a tenth of the overall weight of the plant as a whole,
Mhm.
including the root ball and the seeds and the fiber and the bast and it's there's so much more that we can get out of this plant to create revenue stream, and to build a business behind. Again, the markets aren't open enough yet, but we have that all in our back pocket to know that,
Mhm.
hey, if maybe oil prices don't come up, but the fiber market does open up a little bit, like, we're halfway there. We start making money
Yep.
on the other side of it. That's just unique to diversify. I know we're talking about business, but it's smart to see, like, not say so narrow minded in what your business is, that you're missing, what we've called is, we've just been throwing away and burning in fields,
Mhm.
as an option for a revenue stream. And there's this other part that we leave in the dirt, that we found is like an aspirin, or his waterproofing abilities, right? We just
Mhm.
diss that in and hope it biodegrades. Like, we've stayed so narrow minded that we haven't, really even went out to open these markets up. And Europe's been doing it forever, and we did it back in 1938. Like, we just
Yeah.
got dumbed down because we thought this flower was gold, that we didn't even care about this other stuff. So
Mhm.
tunnel vision is definitely problematic in running a business, even in a market, even when everybody's doing it. That's how, some of these guys, developed new things, because they're like, they had a broad spectrum vision, and they saw that there was a need. And instead of just trying to force everything they could through this one little tiny tunnel, they dug a new one. And then everybody said, wow, this tunnel's bigger. And they went down his tunnel, and we realized this tunnel was useless anyway. So,
Yeah.
so we're, that's that broad spectrum vision in a business is keeping your head on a swivel all the time, and seeing where your business can go and grow, is important, because everybody's going to find, some sort of a roadblock, and no matter what they're doing in business. And it's a matter about how you get over the hurdle, or can get around it, or pave a new path, not
Mhm.
about how you can sit there and figure out who put this roadblock and why would they do that, right? So
Yeah. That's it. Sounds, that type of like using a material for all it's worth reminds me of like the petroleum industry, where, of course you have gasoline or kerosene or all those values or ranges of oil. And then you get like into some other pieces that are like plastics and like other pieces that weren't necessarily like burnable. It didn't generate a lot of money, but you could take this byproduct, and now you created the plastic industry, which is, massive.
It's probably going to be worth more than oil and gas here before too long, right?
Yeah, well, that's yeah. But I know you've done a lot of work on the byproducts of the ag side, on the biomass side. And I've heard, just because we work a lot together, like the fire log, or working with some clothing pieces, or I'm not totally sure. I've heard you mention it, the root ball or things like that. But what do you see as kind of the most promising byproduct right now of hemp?
Are you trying to tell me to give away all my trade secrets here? Is that what's
No,
happening?
not everything. Just you can touch on it, whatever you
Yeah,
want.
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, animal feed, I think is probably gonna. I mean, it's been the byproduct of a lot of different things forever, right? You
Mhm.
crush oil and you have this mash, and you come back and you mix it into some sort of an animal feed for a protein base, and you sell it into the byproducts, and there's no waste. I think
Mhm.
that's the most up and coming, because animals need feed. We've got the studies and tests. We're just waiting for it to get AFCO certified. We're
Mhm.
looking at moving it into, third world countries or other countries that have already certified that, because it's cheaper than synthetic blends and whatnot. I think that's a sweet market space to be in. And because it's necessity, right? An organic substance that's has great protein values and is activated by the extraction,
Mhm.
um, and it's clean, and it's a waste at this point, and so it's going to be relatively cheap,
Mhm.
and it can go into poultry blends and cattle blends and things like that. Getting those markets to shift into that might be a little bit difficult, but I think you're going to see some of the niche ones, but it's a good stamp to have for those companies. So I think that's a pretty good byproduct, um, sale of extracted biomass. So you get to use it on both ends of the process, right? You extract it for
Mhm.
all its oil, and then you sell whatever's left in it for something else. Um, but I would say on the fiber side, as far as the plant goes, um, I think that clothing is going to take off. I just don't know. I think it's probably going to be more textile. Building materials are going to be huge. I just seen canna board. So fiber hardwood flooring,
Mhm.
from hemp. It's beautiful. I would love to put that in my house.
I've heard of the hempcrete. Seen a lot on that.
Yeah,
I know it's not the same, but the hempcrete side
I'm
seems
not sure I'm a
interesting.
believer yet, but
Really?
nah, I don't know. So it might be good for building, but I don't think it's going to be great for structural. I'll just put it out there like that.
Well, it's
So
yeah, I used to make concrete out in Salem, Oregon, and we had like a proprietary mix of concrete or whatever that we would use. And it's most of it you'd be replacing, I guess, the hemp fiber with the synthetic fiber.
right.
And I don't know how that's all that like cost effective, or if it's strong enough, or
Well, it is a biodegradable product. So it just makes me curious, synthetic fibers, fiberglass and whatnot,
Mhm.
versus a biodegradable product that's going to break down, squish, condense, get eaten by whatever, and not
Yeah.
terribly sealed thing. Like, what happens to it in 10, 15 years? Well, we haven't been making it for that long, so we're not exactly sure. So,
We can take a guess, but do you want to
yeah.
build your house with it?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's
That's
people way smarter than me that have better answers, but I don't know where I'm at on the hempcrete yet.
yeah.
Lots of books and lots of theories. Just I don't think any of those markets are very very actionable right now. I mean, horse
Mhm.
betting, that's trading, but um, there's just not a lot of fiber markets that are like, all right, send me billions of pounds, because that's what's got
The
to happen.
quantity, yeah, the quantity is the thing. Like I've seen people want some, or like a super sack, but it's not like something that's like I want 20 super sacks a month, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want a serious volume.
Yeah. So, I think we're a little ways away from that. But I think, again, like I said, it'd be ignorant not to look at those markets and see where you are in processing for those, or in
Mhm.
supply chain for those, or some piece of that puzzle, so that you're not caught off guard when somebody does say, okay, we're launching X and we need Y. And you're like, well, I had Y, I just didn't know it. So that
Mhm.
broad spectrum vision is important.
So when would you look at, I know you're working on some of these projects, but when would you look at like really diving deeper into any of these projects? I mean, is it, I've heard you may have some POs or things like that, but like when is like, okay, I have enough, and this is kind of for people trying to start a business or things like that. Like when do I have enough either expertise, sales, or like the correct team on hand, or is it all three or a combination?
Yeah. Oof. In this particular instance, it's a weight of sales versus capital raise that's necessary to be the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bulk game. Byproduct is a bulk game, and you need to be processing millions and millions and millions of pounds, which costs millions and millions and millions of dollars in equipment. Um, and and so, in order for that to make sense, I've always thought of it as building that story in your business plan backwards for like just to check it. So you may have this great idea in this plan and it has sales and a pro forma and all this beautiful thing, but start at the end. And how many sales do you really have? How many people are willing to write you a PO? How many people have LOIs that they can't wait to drop on your desk from this beautiful deck that you gave them and this nice spread that you showed them about material that you want to create or could create, or can create just small scale and you're looking to go bulk? If the answer is zero, you're not ready. Right?
Yeah.
If the answer is one or two and you can supply it small scale and break even to get into the market, that's a business plan. You can do that if you can use it to prove concepts. If your answer is it's overwhelming and I'm not even trying hard anymore and it's coming in, then right, I have to do it. But we've learned, both you and I have learned, that vertical integration in-house under one person's expertise is a failed business plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Beautiful idea, but it's a failed business plan. And that's really how we met, right?
Yeah.
We met because we both recognized our strong suits, and we both recognized that Zelios wanted nothing to do with pre-processing,
You're
and
not good at it.
Farmers Revival, we don't wear white lab coats. Like that's just not a thing for us. So, but we both had something each other wanted.
Yeah.
And so we vertically integrated, but through strategic partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And that is again, I think, in this type of industry and the scale that it could be and potentially be, is you don't want to be the pre-processor, the extractor, the farmer, and the byproducts guy. That's just going to implode somewhere. Like it's just not going to end well. But being able to be the farmer and supply chain for a company that's going to do one or both of those, that is a strategic partner with an extractor who's going to do the extraction, with a co-op or sales team that's going to sell all your stuff or whatever, however that lines up in that pyramid, is a whole lot stronger than just a vertical cylinder. So I think that's very important to think about, is how do you align yourself with people strategically, where being a partner with them is not affecting your bottom line, but more it's helping you grow and be more robust because you have something that they absolutely need and don't need to take on themselves. So.
And we were able to create a lot of efficiencies together, just working off of each other and creating a very stable supply chain where we had issues. Zelios was not good at doing that, and it just wasn't our strength. And so working with you guys has been a huge benefit for us. What would you say has been, like, you've obviously worked with other people in the past. What would you say is something you look for in partners, and what some good attributes would be for them?
Vet them hard. I built an SOP a long time ago that if I can't shake a person's hand, I'm not doing business with them. I gotta go sit down and meet them. I want to know what other people talk to them like, how they talk to their employees as they walk in and out of the office. I want to see their facility.
That's a good, I've seen that, and sorry to interrupt you, but I've seen people who talk to their employees like in a very disrespectful way. And it's like, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah. And they bend over and take it, right? Like they just let them walk all over them. Yeah. And that's not a person I want to work with, because, honesty, integrity, right? All these good things that we can tell about people, you have to measure them. And the only way you measure them is seeing them in their own real world. Don't be hasty. I think that that's another great piece of advice. Things can look great and people can put on a show and wear a mask for 24 hours, 72 hours and show you everything you want to see, but they can't do it for a week. They're going to wear out and they're going to crack and they're going to show their true colors.
Mhm.
Find people that they are already working with, find businesses that are they're selling goods to, find, people that look for them for supply and go talk to them, find out what they think of the company.
That's a
Um,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, vet them through reference. It's just like a job interview, right? Except it's a
Mhm.
company, not an individual. Um, and then this is the hardest part, but it's business. Have a good exit strategy.
Mhm.
It's important to make sure. I mean, no one ever wants to think about that, but it's just much like marriage. Nobody ever gets married with the intent to get divorced, right? So you're into some sort of a marriage, maybe not before God, but before each other in a business agreement, right?
Mhm.
And a joint venture. And so you've got to make sure that you've got a good exit strategy so that if things do go south or something gets greedy or something were to detrimentally happen to one company or the other or the ownership structure or whatever that looks like, that you're not just wound up in this ball so tight that you've got nowhere to go but down with them, right? So
Mhm.
a good exit strategy is always a good piece to make sure that you think about. We always get caught up in these times of happiness of like, yeah, I got this new partner and they're great and they're awesome.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we've got a few changes in a contract. And you look at him, you're like, oh, minor stuff. And then something happens and you go, dang,
Yeah.
I should have paid attention. So
Yeah. That's the benefit of having a lawyer on hand.
yeah.
They're the ones that are they're very neutral in a sense where everyone's on the business side like, yes, this is going to go awesome. We're going to do great. And the lawyer's kind of like, yeah, it may, but if it doesn't, let's
Yeah.
cover our ass on this other
Yeah.
side and make sure we're
Bet.
good. Yeah.
Bet.
Um, so what would you say is one of your most memorable moments in either starting a company or working in, I know you work with your father, or something that really was something that was only available to you because you were with this company or starting it or growing it, and just something you don't think you'll ever forget?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's real simple. It's two part. One, and I didn't really recognize this until part two, but when I was a kid, I was able to learn how to count change, manage a group of people, build a structure, build something for other people to enjoy, which gave me pride, and I didn't know that, and it taught me massive amount of skills, but pride in doing something for somebody else that in turn generates revenue for me, but it's for
Mhm.
their enjoyment. And the second part to that, when I really realized its benefit, was when I had my two daughters. And as they've been growing up, they're 4 and 6 now. And my oldest daughter was in the ticket shed this year, and she was helping count change and ring in the tickets and bring tickets to the people with a smile on her face. It's blonde hair, blue eyed monster 6-year-old, right? And she's just overwhelmed with the joy of helping. And it was
Yeah.
like, this is something that I would have never had the opportunity to have had my dad not started this business, not had I not stepped in and helped grow it and become, an operating manager of it,
Mhm.
completely. And that for me was like, filled my cup. It was like, at this point, I feel like that's my measure of success, is doing something that, generates revenue for me. Like, it's a business, it needs to be profitable, but in turn, I'm helping somebody else out. And we do the same thing in the CBD side, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we're maybe a less immediate benefactor to that, but in essence, there's tons and tons of great stories about how CBD has helped other people and how it's going to
Mhm.
help other people and how it helps the environment and you name it, across the board. And knowing that you're a part of something great, not bad or dirty or evil, is cup filling. And that's what allows you, even during the hard times when we're in this glut of a market, we can go out to work and know that, someone's depending on me today to do
Mhm.
something that could potentially change their life. And that's worth me getting up in the morning before anybody else and being here and staying till everybody else is gone, even though it sucks on a Sunday. Let's do it. So
Yeah, that's a very cool story as far as the family built companies that you grew up with, a story that now your kids now get to enjoy and see the benefit of as well. I mean, I would say as a person, you likely took all of those skills learning at a young age and have used those throughout your life. And I'm sure your children will do the same. That's kind of pulling it out of the employee owner mentality, kind of that difference.
You bet.
Yeah. So how has it been working with either people that you knew or, not as nice, but like maybe if family relationships went bad, working with people or friends went bad? Have you been able to step away from that fast enough, or do you wish you maybe had done it? You don't have to get specific or anything,
Sure.
but just maybe like I've worked with family, I worked with my parents and my brother, and they gave me a great opportunity, loved working with them, but I can absolutely tell you that being outside of that now, I would say I'm overall just able to spread my wings more and happier from that. But just your perspective.
That's a very, very, very good question. This is, we're a very agriculture family. My dad had three brothers and a sister,
Mm.
grew up. People had big families because it was cheap labor, right? Yes, you had
You
big
knew where
families
they
because
slept, so
your
you could
kid,
wake them up in the morning.
yeah, you're like, I'm only feeding you because you're crying tonight because when you're 10, you're going to go shovel cuts on a potato field, right? So
Yeah.
so that's just, that's the farm lifestyle. And I've spread my wings and done some other things, but I'll be honest, I never really did any of those things. Um, on my own because I always had the support of my dad, who's been
Hmm.
really the support in all of the business. And it's very funny. We went to this conference one time and we're listening to a person talk about wills and how to set your wills up and your estate planning and whatnot when you own a business. And they said something that really struck me. They said, when you own a business as a family, you're not a family's family. You're a business first family. And
Hmm.
and it's kind of as far as they really elaborated. But what I took away from that was that, you know, there's a lot of family businesses that end in strife and just huge implosion. And we've been a
Hmm.
part of that. Me and my dad, we're too much alike and we butt heads like you wouldn't even believe. Like the fireworks we don't pay for, that's just me and my dad going at it. So it's but we have this unsaid rule about being a business first family, and no matter how much we butt heads, whether it be on personal stuff or family stuff or even business stuff, that we know our role and we will not allow the business to suffer because of that.
Yeah.
And that really rebuilds our relationship because we then see each other, not being like, screw this, I'm out, and just leaving, all this task behind. We go
Hmm.
right back to it and we can then, come back together. And our family now, since we've really implemented that, has a real understanding that we are a business first family. And through that, we have love for each other and
Hmm.
the personal affections we need, but we really focus as a business first family, to not allow the emotions of family drama, for lack of better words, to
Yeah.
interfere with, holding somebody back or whatever the case may be, and just turning into a drama show, which in turn is just going to destroy your business.
Yeah, there's, growing up in a household or having siblings, there's like little things that become acceptable just because you're family, where on the business setting, it's not at all. I can remember when I was back in Oregon and I was like, maybe there was a family issue or whatever that I was involved in, and I was upset or annoyed about it. And I just decided at some point that I was never going to let my own personal level of work suffer due to, say, like a family thing happen. Like something that I can very well control is my work quality, and, how I respond to people, especially in front of maybe other employees. Like if there's a family situation, there's another employee there, the communication needs to be different or, more structured, because, at the end of the day, if they're an owner, they need to be respected in any light. And so I made a decision that even though it's family, I'm not going to entertain any of that or get into it maybe later. But while at work, I'm going to control my work and I'm going to do as good a job as I can. And maybe if I need to spread my wings, then I need to do it in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, what they always say, they say, when you have a partner and you get into heat, you don't have to go home and see them. But if you have a family business partner, you got to see them at all the functions
Yeah.
and every day at work, and the strife just continues, and it's just
Yep.
this bleed that just keeps bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And so
Mhm.
having the separation, and it's the same thing with employees as a business, right? Like you know, I'm one of my employees was the best man at my wedding, but
Yeah.
we also have this understanding that at work I will be respected. Like I'm the boss, and
Mhm.
he knew that. And when we were out drinking a beer or hanging out at the house or shooting pool, like it was two different people
Yeah.
at that in those places, and there has to be those boundaries, and you have to be very strong about them, because if you
Mhm.
let somebody take an inch in that, eventually you realize you gave up a mile, and there's no recovering it.
Yeah.
Once you lose any control, you never get it back. So you have to start over. So
Yeah. Or you have to do something like, I call it like a coming to Jesus, where
yeah.
kind of draw a line in the sand and like, we got two paths. We either go
Yeah.
this way or we go that way. And
You
that's
got to
not,
bring the wrathful Jesus, though, right? You can't
that's
bring the
not
merciful,
the nice
forgiving one.
one.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But great, Trevor. We've had a great conversation. We'll wrap it up just in a couple minutes, but if you could, if you had any message for an entrepreneur that was trying to build their own company, or maybe I've talked with some other people that you can be an entrepreneur under someone else's roof in another company, but like any advice that you have or any kind of final comments that you'd have.
Yeah, I think, when you go to measure the vitality of the business that you're wanting to put together, look at the market, and you got to find the gap in the market and then build the market in the gap. And if
Mm,
you're building the market that's in the market, you're competing in a very, very, very cutthroat competitive world in any
yeah.
market space right now. And to start from zero is going to be a very, very difficult journey. So, find the gap in the market and then build the market in the gap. Doesn't matter what market, there's still need out there for something that hasn't been done yet or is not being done well. And
Mhm.
that's where I would look to be plugged in my business in a large market, because then you become viable with less competition, right? You can really set the pace there. So that's my opinion. Don't stop. Just there's going to be hurdles. It's a pain in the neck. The first few years are always difficult, but if you can and you can afford it, like don't wreck your family over it. But if you can afford it, just buckle down, stay focused, and you'll see the light.
Well, good man. I think I'll take that as some advice too. So, but it was great having you on, Trevor, and hope you the best in your serial entrepreneur side. Hope you can maybe kick off another company at some point. But yeah, it was great having you on, man, and hope you have a good day.
You bet. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.